as the Niners get ready to take on the Cleveland Browns in a game that, quite frankly, Dibs, I never love it when the tone starts to get where I believe it has arrived, which is
where?
Whatever, piece of cake. Niners are going to win this one by 3 touchdowns, maybe 4. They might. But I think what goes along with sort of one of the narratives we've been talking about, which is stop worrying about January, stop even worrying about Philly in December. Go week by week and enjoy the hell out of this ride. I think what goes along with that is don't assume that every week is going to look like the last. And I very much feel that way this weekend. I think the Niners will do great.
Yeah.
But this is a different game. And we don't need to be reminded in the NFL that every single game is a threat. We see it every single week. Every game is a threat. So I'm going to go into this one with the same kind of excitement that I went into the last one with. Maybe not quite that much, but you get what I'm saying.
I get exactly what you're saying, and every game is equally important in terms of 1 out of 17, and it should be a fairly easy game in terms of the point spread, and they've got a third-string quarterback, and their defense is good, but no defense has been up to the task of stopping or slowing this Niner offense. So how would the Niners possibly lose this game? To me, it's 3 turnovers, and they have 2 through 5 games. So are they going to suddenly get sloppy and Shanahan's going to get careless and a lot of penalties and turnovers? I don't see it, but to me, that's the way that this game would go if you were going to find your way on the losing side.
Yeah, no doubt. And then we got all kinds of stuff coming out of last night as well. We were throwing out that idea of who scares you. And I know that as Brock Purdy gets all this national attention and people try to figure out where to put him on the board, a board that, by the way, doesn't even exist. We know who the standard-bearing quarterback is in this league. It's Patrick Mahomes. But if I watched that game last night, and I've watched all the Chiefs games this year, that doesn't look very different than the other games that they've played so far this year. They looked really, really great one time, and it was at home against the Bears when the Bears couldn't even complete a forward pass. I don't know what happened to the Bears the next 2 weeks.
Right.
They've looked a whole lot better.
Well, Justin Fields is channeling Al Davis.
Yeah.
They're running the 9 route every time.
Well, he finally just said, instead, you remember the Rams said F them picks? Justin said F them coaches.
Seriously, F that playbook.
Yeah, we're just hawking it downfield and see what happens. But anyway, bottom line is this. You look at the Bills' injuries and whatever it is that looks like it's lost its dynamic feel in Kansas City, I mean, yeah, who scares you? Not them.
No.
And that has nothing to do with Brock being this, that, or the other versus Patrick. Mahomes is the face of the league, and nothing's changing that. But that team that I watched last night, I'd love it if the Niners play that team in the Super Bowl because the Niners would kick that team's butt.
Well, short week, and ultimately they came out with the victory, and you did what you needed to do to win the game. But that's not a Kansas City offense that I'm familiar with, one that's super vertical and super exciting. And you and I talked about it, and I don't even know if we call it the green room anymore. We were in the Pizza Palace is where we were because shout out our boss. Look, I brought pizza. And I do want to thank him for that because it filled the belly up real nice. But you and I were talking about Kansas City, and this is what you get when you have a quarterback making $45 million or whatever he's making now with his rejiggered contract. He's making that big money, and you're left with Rashee Rice, who he did all right for me in fantasy. I was looking for a little bit more.
I was watching.
Looking for a little more.
Wait, you had something else, though, last night, too, didn't you?
Well, and we'll get to that.
Okay.
It was a guy
I can't remember. Oh, was it?
Steve Smith Sr.
Oh, that's right. You had him.
It's a guy that Steve Smith Sr. or Jr., I'm not sure which Steve Smith was coming down his road. But, yeah, my guy is a victim of his quarterback, Jerry Jeudy. We'll get to that. But Kansas City, you pay your quarterback all that money, and you're left with a tight end. I go on too many dates. And thank you. That's what people say. Good to see her in the crowd. And he's amazing. He's a Hall of Famer. Mahomes a Hall of Famer. And then you got Pacheco, Rice, Kadarius Sir Drop-A-Lot, and a bunch of nothing. So that's just be careful what you wish for, Niner fans, in terms of your quarterback, because in 3 years, your quarterback is going to be that quarterback, and you're not going to be surrounded by all these baubles.
Well, we'll see what they're surrounded by.
You're right.
Because,
Cap schmap.
Well, check this out. Let's talk about Jerry Jeudy for a second, who did not do much for your fantasy squad. Thank you, Jerry.
I would have sat him, but Kansas City's defense stinks.
Not last night they didn't.
Well, the problem is Russell Wilson is god-awful.
The Denver Broncos are in a very bad way.
Sean Payton should be fired.
Well, my gosh, he's coached 6 games. You want to fire him already?
I wanted to fire him 2 weeks ago, Mark.
I mean, the funny thing is
he's a fraud.
He's doing a lot better than the last Denver coach did.
Barely.
Well, but
and he mocked the last Denver coach, and he's not doing any better.
And then
they 1-5,
and then they lost directly to him. They gave a game ball to Nathaniel Hackett
my God, Coach.
Because Peyton came down his road. But I will say this: as bad as Peyton looks this year, and as bad as Hackett looked last year, what do I start to feel when I see one coach go in there and look poor, another coach goes in there and looks poor? What's the common thread here? Maybe it ain't the coach. Russ, you cooked. You cooked.
Man.
I mean.
Let Russ cook?
No, Russ, you cooked.
Let Russ be cooked.
That's the way it looks. But
yeah.
Anyway, Jerry Jeudy. Once upon a time.
Oh, man.
Jerry Jeudy.
A fairy tale.
He was someone you 49er fans really, really wanted. You wanted him with that first-round pick in 2020. That first-round pick that the 49ers received in exchange for DeForest Buckner that sat at number 13 in the draft, and then they moved down so that the Bucs could come up and take Tristan Wirfs. The 49ers ended up with the 14th pick in the draft. And as Commissioner Goodell walked to the podium, and many people went, is it going to be Jerry Jeudy or is it going to be CeeDee Lamb? And the answer was neither. It was Javon Kinlaw. And I know that Kinlaw has had an injury-riddled and disappointing career so far. However, doing some very interesting things this year, and he may finally be getting his career going, fingers crossed. But put that aside for a second. Everybody knew the 49ers needed to address the receiver position. How you like them now? I have heard forever that the 49ers keep whiffing on first-round picks. Oh, they're great in the 4th and the 5th. But, boy, do they mess up that first round, unless, of course, you're talking about Nick Bosa. Okay, let's dive into that first round, 2020.
Javon Kinlaw, come on. Stop defending it.
Followed by?
Jerry Jeudy went next. CeeDee Lamb they could have had.
Uh-huh.
They could have had Justin Jefferson.
They could have had Justin Jefferson.
They could have drafted Brandon
Exactly.
Aiyuk.
And so now.
Aiyuk? Oh, wait, they did.
No one will question that Justin Jefferson was the best receiver in that draft because he is now the best receiver in the game. No one will question that.
Well, not currently.
Well, he's hurt.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
No, he's definitely the best receiver in the
right.
game. But Brandon Aiyuk was not just pick 25. Brandon Aiyuk was the 5th wide receiver taken in this draft. And I will
6th,
argue.
Actually.
Am I missing someone?
Henry Ruggs behind bars.
Good Lord. Exactly. I forgot the first wide receiver taken in
Ruggs,
this draft.
Jeudy Lamb, Rieger, Jefferson, Aiyuk.
Jalen Reagor. Oh, my God.
Uh-huh.
The Eagles took him one pick before Jefferson, knowing they needed a receiver.
Oops.
It's worked out. The Eagles have ended up with a great receiving core now.
Yeah.
And Reagor ended up as a teammate with Justin Jefferson in Minnesota. But the bottom line is Brandon Aiyuk at pick 25, the 6th receiver taken in this draft, and you can go through the whole draft and look at all the receivers, because I did. Justin Jefferson's the number 1 wide receiver in this draft. Brandon is 2, in my opinion. You can put him up next to CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
And
we did that earlier last week.
I understand where the numbers are there, but I also understand what I think your eyes and your mind tell you about those 2 receivers. CeeDee Lamb is very good, but you're losing nothing in going from CeeDee to Brandon at minimum.
Number 2.
They're pretty much like you. That's if you want to call it interchangeable, go ahead. The Niners nailed that as far as the way they played the wide receiver position. Even if you don't love Kinlaw, they ended up with both. So you look at Jeudy now, who's a part of former wide receivers, ripping him on national TV. The Niners nailed this. And Dibs, you may forget, do you remember who else they got in this draft?
I'd have to scroll down, but I know they got Javon Kinlaw.
Take you all the way to round 7. You remember who they got?
Oh, I'll scroll. Scrolling.
Anybody remember who they picked in the 7th round that year?
I'll remember as soon as I see it. Oh,
Keep going.
Yeah. Third down and Juwan.
That would be their 3rd best wide receiver on this team.
Yeah.
And if you go through the whole list of everyone who was picked in the 4th and the 5th and the 6th, Juwan Jennings is also a top 10 receiver in this draft with the way that it's played out in their NFL careers. So from that position, which was a position of need that year, go back to also even earlier than that when they got Debo, targeted him in round 2 the year before that. That's one position where the 49ers have drafted their entire core and I would argue have crushed it. Crushed it to the point where they've almost got decisions to make now in terms of how many of them they can keep, because I think they'll probably pony up to keep Brandon next year, but probably not Juwan. They're probably not going to be able to keep them all.
Which is fine. I mean, Juwan Jennings is your 3rd receiver, and if you look at how often they run 11 personnel, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, and 3 wide receivers, they run 11 probably about 30% of the time, which might be among the bottom 5 in the league. So you really are a 2 wide receiver team in terms of what you're trying to do. And so can you find another guy to replace Juwan Jennings? I think you can. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I would imagine he's probably got 14 catches this year, maybe 12.
Juwan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd put him in
if that.
Yeah, right?
5 games, that's 3 catches a game. I bet he does not have that.
Right. So if I said that he had 12 catches, would you might take the under? And so can you replace a guy who is really not an elite blocker and not that much a part of what you're trying to do on your team in terms of, you run a lot of 21 personnel. He's got 6 catches.
Keep going.
4?
5.
Oh, geez.
5 catches.
Double J's.
But we also know,
Number 5.
I look at it more from the perspective of what we know as 49er fans. He's a good player.
Of
He's
course.
a reliable player. And yes, his stats, he's not going to put up stats because he's WR3.
But if he wants a deal that will allow him to actually be a receiver, he'll get a better deal than what you would offer him.
Totally.
You would probably, based on what you need him to do, you would give him a 3-year, $11 million deal with like $3 million guaranteed, and he can get better than that elsewhere.
Remember, he missed a game as well. He did miss a game as well with an injury.
Sure.
So he's played 4
and that
games.
That would have been a 7-catch game.
He's been, you never know. He's played 4 games. He has been targeted 8 times and has 5 catches for 101 yards. And we have not seen a touchdown for 3rd and Juwan as of yet.
And this is no disrespect to Juwan Jennings. You haven't had a lot of 3rd downs. You haven't had a lot of spots where you need to run 11 personnel. You've been in control of every single game where you can use check with the 2 running backs and the 1 tight end, or you can have the 2 tight ends, or you can go 3 wide receivers, and they've used, other guys, Bell, and, even McLeod has been out there catching the ball. You haven't needed Juwan in terms of an actual need.